first things first, get the bike up in the air, some way, shape, or form. We're going to do jack stands underneath Ryan's foot pegs, and get the lower part of your bodywork off. So, we're on the other side of the bike now, and so you can see where we are working on the bike. It's down here, and that's the section in question right now. So we have 1, 2, and 3 bolts that we're going to take out. If these get all grimed up and gooked up and can't move freely, nor can your rear wheel. So again, this is taking care of this section of your bike after you race in the rain. Is on the philosophy side of want everything perfect, but again, it's the little things that add up, and we will start taking these bolts out. One nut is on this side for this dog bone, and then the nut for this back one is on the other side. And initially we're just going to take these 3 bolts out so that we can then pull this piece and work on that. We'll leave the shock attached for now. That bolt and this one are both 17 millimeters. So we're going to use socket on one side, and just a regular crescent wrench or spanner on the other side. And then there's this guy in here actually, so there's a 4th bolt that is what else we need to take out, but that's a 17 millimeter as well. So we have all the tools we need for this particular step. Make sure you get your tools available first so that you're not searching for things in the middle. So have everything ready before you start your project. So just thinking out loud with you guys here. If we disconnect this on both sides, our pivot point of the swing arm here, this will drop down, and so will the one on the other side, which frees up this. So we actually don't need to take this out because we can just swing these out of the way for now. We probably ultimately will, but initially we don't have to, because what we want is this piece out. So this is the goal. So we'll take out this piece, and one on the shock, which is I think also 17 millimeter, and then the last one. Initially, because it is in there so tight, it's sort of holding itself on the other side, so I can loosen it initially, but then quickly socket on the other side to prevent it from spinning. And actually, I'm gonna just turn that. One nut, and 1 washer. And if you don't have weight off the rear wheel, getting that first bolt out can be a pain, because that is holding the weight of the bike up, believe it or not. So you might use a mallet, but we also don't want to damage the threads on this side. So we're going to loosen this first, so that when this does come out, these are free to pivot. So, got the one out. Now we're going to loosen this one, so we can pull the dog bones back. Oh, there they go themselves. Awesome. So, now that the dog bones are free, the muffler is taken off to give us a better access. Dog bones are free, and so now we are taking out that bolt to disconnect it from the shock, and then this bolt right there to disconnect it from the bike. So given you're in such a tight space, one of the things you can do is if you put the angles of them relatively equal and opposite apart, you can squeeze them together as a point of leverage. They're not the lowest torque ratings on these bolts on a bike, but they're also not the heaviest, so they come out relatively easily. Again, keep track of your nuts and bolts when you take them off. For the dog bone, for example, I always put the washer and nut where they belong to keep track of them. Or rather, they're both 14 millimeter, which makes sense. Again, just sort of squeeze them together as a point of leverage. Yep. So this one hasn't been done in a while because that is much tighter than the spec'd torque. This is really on there. No surprise. After this test trip. That sounded really good or really bad? Really good. God, that was seized on there, huh, wasn't it? But, of course, once it started, it doesn't take much to keep it going. Goes. So, next sort of business. Shock's free, dog bones are out. This guy's free to play in here, but there's one more thing we need to take out. There is a metal bushing in here, which comes out this direction, this way, towards us. That is the reason why we can't take it out is because while it's through this part of it hangs out here. So we gotta push it from the other side. I'm gonna use my preferred poker. Just an extension rod for a socket. And the big ones might be too big, so we have an extension to 1/4 inch. But if you find the wall, obviously if you push it through, it'll go all the way through. And actually, let's try it like this. So we're going to put it in, sort of bend it up so we can. Right, and so there you have it. So we're currently cleaning this out now, and as you can see, these roller bearings, they have this little plastic rubberized silicone, some sort of synthetic material that comes from the factory, or is supposed to be around them, but if you leave them sit for too long, they get all brown, crusty, crummy, like this. So it's good to clean and dry these out when you clean it with like a solvent or a light acid, some sort of cleaner, bearing cleaner, whatever, brake cleaner. We use the compressed air to dry them out fully. So, moving it up here, we have, this is high temp bearing grease. A lot of heat gets created down by the shock from moving, but also just because the engine's right there. Now, for our, what do you call this? I guess our needle bearing, the rubber seals. We'll clean these out as well with a little solution. I mean, the point of what we're doing here is getting all the dirt and grime and out of the bearings and putting grease and good stuff into the bearings. So these are the underside, the inside of the seals, and so we'll want to make sure get all the gook and grime out of here, because otherwise it will go back into the needle bearings, and the whole point of this is to get that out, so why leave it in there? Sometimes there's a little dirt, sometimes there's a lot of dirt, but either way it's good to do, because otherwise what's the point in going through everything we've done if you're not going to do it 100% of the way. So now we'll just flip these real quick like pancakes. Get the other side. And we'll sort of just, I'll hold, pinch it in my fingers here, and same with paper towel, and sort of work it around like that. And you do that for all of them. So for starters, we're going to put them in on just the one side. So I've already started this one. I'll take another. And we want to put it in evenly. You want it flush and flat with the outside. So you just start it. And I just sort of press evenly and work my way around until it's seated like that. Same with this guy here. So start it. Work your way around. Not in. Let's see, that's still a little bit in. Pull it back out. Push it flush. So we'll start with that side, and then, so now that we have our bushings, we'll clean these off as well. Make sure there's not any rust, grime, or residue left on them. If you have to, and there is, grab some 800 grit sanding cloth, not paper. There's a difference. Sandpaper is rigid. It's obviously it has a paper backing. Cloth has a fabric woven backing, so that the sandpaper molds to the shape of the surface that you are sanding. And then now we will probably don't need to at this point, but we will grab just a little bit of grease. Nothing much, not even enough to really cover it. You just have enough. Work it into the metal. Believe it or not, metal is porous, and you can rub things into it. Right. Just enough of film of grease to help it go in. It's gonna push out any excess on this side. So let's just sort of go back and push it in. And there it goes. Take that and bring it back around. Fill in this gap here. Yep. Sort of fill in this crevice where our seal will go. Alright, we'll just push that in nicely. Not too deep, just enough. Just go around it, make sure it's... Before we put it back in, I find it worth the extra step when you're also going through this process. Take this time before we put it back in to just clean off the bolts. Why not? It's another 30 seconds. You're taking all this time to make sure it's clean. Might as well just take might as well. So wipe down the nuts for these, wipe down the washers that'll go for these as well, do the third one, and get it back in. So now, put it back in, we'll just reverse the process. So, bring the linkage up this direction. Put the bushing in. Actually, first, as you can now see, it's all grimy. Let's first clean out in here. Otherwise we'll just get dirt and grime back on what we just cleaned. And now we'll set it in there. Switch hands. This is a weird angle. Let's set it. Belongs. Set that, and then we will put the bolt in, the 14mm bolt in here, the 17mm bolt through here, and then connect the linkage dog bones to here. So we got the one in, it's tightened, not torqued. We'll tighten them all and then torque them to spec afterwards. But so we got it connected. Now we'll take the narrowest of the bolts. We will find that's home and tighten that. And its washer and its bolt. Tighten this down. Finger tight first, and then we'll come back at it later with, again, do it all, and then we'll do the same. Uh-oh. This guy. We'll just seat that. We'll bring this up, put the bolt through, tight, and finish it up.